Warning. The following cartoon contains graphic violence, strong language, sexual themes, flashing lights, as well as rampant demon horniness. Once just a silly spin-off of an up-and-coming indie animation show, Helluva Boss has sideswiped the entire internet with its surprisingly deep and emotional plot, deranged humor, and the inclusion of the best character any animation has ever been graced with. At first, busy with introducing all of our favorite characters in Season 1, Helluva Boss really took off with its plot in Season 2, giving our beloved demons more character depth and emotion than most high-budget films today. And that's not looking like it's changing anytime soon in Season 3. But that brings us to today. With Season 3 approaching our fragile emotional states with the speed and malicious intent of conquest on a beach, some folks might not have the time to rewatch the entirety of Season 2 before the new season kicks off. And that is where we come in. Strap in, buckle up, tie yourself down, or whatever other kinky maneuver you need to do, because we're here to give you
the Helluva Boss Season 2 Recap!
Now, Season 2 kicked off with The Circus, one of the most adorable episodes because it features these two little goobers before life became life and made them adults. The episode shows us the time Blitz and Stolas met as kids, thanks to the absolute frontrunners for Father of the Year over here. They're re-meeting after 25 years as adults thanks to the glitter-covered trash bag that we call Stella, before jumping to the present day, where Stolas is drinking away his sorrows after the disaster at Ozzy's. We saw how Blitz was dealing with the horrible situation in Season 1, Episode 8, and it seems Stolas, despite his condition, is handling it better, singing one of the most beautiful songs in the series before Stella, ever the doting spouse, berates him for singing. Not for interrupting her sleep, not for being too loud at night, just because. And that drives Stolas over the edge like a redneck shitty car, and he demands a divorce. Like the absolute Chad he is. Stella smiles about as evilly as a bird can, talking about bringing her brother into the problem before stalking off, leaving Stolas to lament his feelings for the imp that just vomited up enough alcohol to completely flood a minivan. Episode 2 shows the immediate consequences of this divorce. Stolas throwing Stella's things into a truck to be shipped out, while Octavia tries to get his attention. The episode focuses on her, because as we find out, tonight is the once-in-a-bajillion years chance to see eldritch shooting stars called Azathoth's Tears. Putting aside the horrific existential dread that comes with the supposed confirmation that all of reality is just the dream bubble of a guy who cries about as often as Gordon Ramsay compliments people, Octavia's upset as well. Not because her entire existence could blink out if the Elder God version of Snorlax wakes up, but because Stolas is so tied up in the divorce that he's forgotten the date, and Octavia, in her teenage mindset, believes he doesn't love her enough to remember. So, she breaks into the IMP office to steal the grimoire and go see them by herself. Unfortunately, Take Me to See the Stars is about as specific a request as, show me where the water at. So instead of the sundered reality of the void that exists within and without all things, she ends up in Hollywood. Holly's Wood. Whoever Holly is, they better be making big royalty checks for that one. Stolas, of course, immediately takes notice of this, and thus begins a Scooby-Doo level chase in which Luna is trying to find Octavia. Blitz has an absolute elite level crash out over giving up a dog, which reveals to us exactly how he met Luna in a dog pound for dog people, and Moxie wins every musical award in the United States apparently, given the size of that rucksack. But eventually, Luna finds Octavia, comforts her over their shared dad debacles, and rather than the tears of an elder god, the families watch a fireworks show triggered by the firelight of the burning TV studio. The episode sorta glosses over the actual dog pound for human-level intelligent beings, but I'm being told I'm fired if I go on a tirade about it, so we move on. Episode 3 is a special one. We've met everyone else's families, and now it's Moxie's turn. And he has a background so unsurprising, it loops back into surprising again. He's a former mob prince, called to his former home on the premise of a job. Here we meet his father, Crimson, and his ex-boyfriend, Chaz, who looks like he'd leave a film of oil on your hand if you touched him. Like, honestly, does he look greasy to anyone else? Anyway, things are about as hunky-dory as a tense reunion with a mass-murdering abusive father and a dirty ex that left you to get arrested can be, until Crimson informs Moxie of what exactly the job is. Moxie is getting married. Specifically to Chaz. Crimson informs him that Chaz has recently come into a lot of money, and to get a hold of it all, he has to marry into the family, and the only one he could reasonably marry is Moxie. Of course, Moxie's married to the best wife a person could ask for, so he stands 10 toes down. Or 2 hooves? 4 hoof tips? He denies his father's wishes, which leads to him being tased, tied up, and stuffed in a dress, while Blitz is ambushed by Chaz while investigating him and stuffed in the trunk of a car. So, it's up to the best character in the entire series to drive a car straight through the wedding venue, murder over a dozen armed mob goons with makeshift weapons, and save her hubby. The best character. Period. Also, it's revealed that Chaz has no money whatsoever. He lied about it so he could get into Crimson's family, literally called the no last names, and make money. Somehow. He hadn't gotten that far in the plan. And it seems like he never will, because Crimson rips his damn teeth out and hangs them on his wall of trophies. R.I.P., bozo. Episode 4 sees the arrival of a new character and the return of a fan favorite. Stolas is handling divorce details at a cafe with Stella and her brother, Andralphus, finally making his awaited debut, for all of 2 minutes, before the return of the ever-loved Striker, who kidnaps Stolas and drags him off to his lair in wrath. So, as the only ones who know what's happened, IMP have to go save the prince. Well, Moxie and Millie do, because Blitz has to take Luna to the vet. Apparently she's due for her shots, which I'd comment on, but we get shots too, so that's not as insane as the prison from earlier. Millie and Moxie rush off to save Stolas from Striker, who certainly hasn't taken kindly to having a royal demon in his midst, spitting about blue bloods and rich people and other things I genuinely can't fault him for. Stolas is saved only because Andralphus convinced Stella to order the hitman, cowboy? Striker, to spare him for the sake of making their takeover of his assets as easy as possible. This buys just enough time for Millie and Moxie to find Striker's lair and drive him off, though not before Stolas has thoroughly had his ass whooped by angelic weaponry. So they rush him to the hospital, meeting Blitz and Luna on the way before a full plague doctor team arrives and takes the Goetia away like they've got a 2319. And of course, the tension increases. Blitz and Stolas haven't really talked about their relationship since Ozzy's, and Blitz is about as emotionally mature as a maladapted mantis shrimp, so we'll have a long while more before they broach that topic with each other. Episode 5 is perhaps the most controversial in the season. Blitz, held up with the sudden disappearance of his sister Barbie Wire from her rehab dorm, delegates Moxie and Millie to handle a job that comes to their door involving a murdered summer camp counselor. Moxie, being Moxie, takes to this a bit too eagerly. He plans out an entire stakeout to blend in with the other people at the summer camp and find the murderer stealthily, which, with him being so eager to not be the punching bag of the team, seriously, what is their problem with him? Is too tunnel visioned to see the obvious proof that appears in front of him, and wants to prove himself, which leads to one of the most depressing montages I've ever seen. Entering the summer camp, which, Ivana Cummore, is an absolutely insane name for a summer camp for children, and absolutely paints the worst kind of light on the client from the start. But I digress. Maxine attempts to fit in and enact his plan like a master spy, but is thoroughly and resoundingly rejected at every possible turn despite his best efforts. While Millie, posing as Millard, is immediately so accepted that she becomes an internet star overnight. And they come to words over this. Moxie is absolutely shattered that he's still the laughingstock and is angry that Millie gets all the fame, despite not trying. While Millie is angry that something good is happening to her and she's finally the one people notice. And Moxie isn't happy for her. But Moxie realizes his error and corrects it by being there to support his wife during the camp's big talent show while he investigates proof that he finds, only to discover Blitz is in on the same trail as him, leading to the revelation that the murderer they've been chasing is none other than Blitz's sister and her accomplice in a heroin smuggling ring. A fight, of course, ensues, A fireworks accident at Millie's show leads to the death of the accomplice. Barbie declares she never wants to see Blitz again, and they all go their separate ways. And despite the job being done, it feels like nobody won in this scenario. Except Millie, because she deserves it. Episode 6 is the first of twin episodes focused on the returning Fizzaroli, Blitz's former fellow circus performer and lover to Asmodeus. That's right, every theory we had about them in Season 1 is not just confirmed, but expanded upon. They're just so cute. Fizz even gets a limo for his day trip to the Greed Ring to practice for an upcoming pageant of some kind. I wonder if we'll see that at some point. But it won't be this time, because while taking his dogs out for a walk, Fizz runs into none other than Blitz once again, and the two quickly get into a full-on fight over their differences, which draws the attention of the coincidence police, because literally 20 feet away is Stryker once again, now getting a job with none other than Crimson himself. With the fight of one of their nemeses and one of the easiest to ransom people within earshot of their interview, Fizz and Blitz suddenly find themselves captives of the plotting mafia boss, and this time with no sign of the best character to save them. Asmodeus, meanwhile, is totally unaware of the situation, having a meeting with Stolas over a shocking reveal. The Goetia Prince wants one of Asmodeus's crystals that provide access to the living world to give to Blitz. Stolas apparently feels guilty, believing Blitz is tied to the relationship with Force because of his need of the grimoire. And Stolas, adorable doting goober that he is, has decided to get one of Asmodeus's crystals so Blitz no longer needs to feel tied down. But that entire conversation is derailed when Crimson reveals himself and informs Asmodeus of the situation. The King of Sin, of course, has his hands tied, figuratively, instead of Fizzaroli's being literally tied. But that just means Fizz and Blitz get the chance to talk about why they hate each other so much. And it turns out to be one of the most relieving conversations I've ever seen. Apparently, Blitz was the cause of a fire that destroyed the circus they worked at, which caused a fireworks malfunction. Wow, a lot of people die by fireworks in this season, huh? That destroyed most of Fizzaroli's body, as well as killing his own mother, showing why Barbie hates him. But Fizzaroli isn't even angry about that. He's angry at Blitz for leaving abruptly, when Blitz reveals that he didn't leave. He was always there, but was told Fizz didn't want to see him anymore. The two have a light bulb moment of realizing that 15 years of hatred was completely unfounded before they both use their respective skills, Fizz at performances, Blitz at anything mildly illegal, to escape from first Crimson, who may or may not have been crushed beneath a collapsing warehouse, and then Stryker, who in his constant failures has started going off the deep end. But with an incredibly emotional reconciliation, Fizz and Blitz are able to get home before Asmodeus is forced to sign anything over to Crimson, and the adorable couple agree to give Stolas a crystal for Blitz. But we don't hear about that in the next episode, where we meet a character people were waiting on even longer than Androlphus, the Lord of Greed himself, Mammon. And he's bigger than most folks anticipated, and Australian. But not only that, he's hosting a clown pageant to see who will become his marketing icon for another year, a competition that Fizzaroli has won for 10 years running and is expected to keep winning this time. But Asmodeus is worried. Fizz seems to be off his game this year, and even more importantly, he doesn't need to do this, because Asmodeus can just provide for whatever he needs. But Fizzaroli's neck deep in the anxiety of believing that without his performances, he's just nothing. A feeling so understood by the writer of this script that he actually had to go outside and lay in the grass to stifle a panic attack. And Fizz's feelings aren't entirely unjustified. Hot on his heels in this competition are the Glam sisters, Glitz and Glam. So, are their names Glitz Glam and Glam Glam, or? Never mind. They're neck and neck with Fizzaroli, and the poor guy starts crumbling under the pressure, when Asmodeus swoops in and tells him differently, that he doesn't need Mammon, he never did, and that he's the best thing to ever happen to him. The only reason I think he didn't propose was that it would have outright killed the viewers with the sheer cuteness of the entire scene. So, Fizzaroli, realizing this, has a monumental musical number to tell Mammon to pound sand, and he takes that about as well as can be expected, but Asmodeus steps in to help, and in doing so, reveals to the public that he loves Fizzaroli, which doesn't seem to have many consequences. But Mammon lets it go this time, and though Fizz and Ozzy go home happy, we're still left with his threat hanging in the air. And then we reach what I like to call the "Oh my god, please just talk to each other" arc. Starting with episode 8, the dreaded and awaited Full Moon episode. In it, Blitz is going back to Stolas to continue their once-a-month meetings, but since he's been away a while, he decides to get him gifts and spruce himself up for the event, to make it extra special. Meanwhile, 2 enemy forces have joined up in the living world, the Cherubs, who are found by Dork, which results in the 2 teams working together to catch the demons that ruined their lives. Thus we see that Dork apparently has the same budget as the rest of the US military, because what is all of this? They've got cloning, holy weaponry, mech suits, a fursuit for some reason, and an actual portal to hell! That seems like something that should be much, much more important than it actually ends up being, but I digress. While Blitz is preparing for his date, the Cherubs keep trying to catch him, only to be thwarted by the other members of IMP in a classic he somehow doesn't notice the actual war going on behind him trope. But despite all of that being 2/3 of the episode, it somehow takes a backseat to the final third, when Blitz and Stolas meet once again. And it goes about as wrong as possible. Stolas gifts the Asmodean crystal to Blitz, trying to explain that it would allow Blitz to not be forced to see him just for the sake of the book. But Blitz does not take this well. Disbelief turns to anger really, really quickly, with Blitz believing that Stolas is simply getting rid of him after everything they've been through. And the crash out is biblical and heart-wrenching as all hell, leaving the 2 of them separated, the future uncertain, and all of us emotionally devastated. Episode 9 takes place not long after, where we see Blitz trying to reconcile with Stolas, but the Goetia is not having it. After another argument, Stolas receives an invitation from nowhere, I guess, to attend a party for all of Blitz's exes, hosted by Verosika. They just broke up! How did you even get this here? Anyway, Blitz and Stolas have a moment about how Blitz just can't say sorry to people, prompting 2 different montages. One with Blitz going around apologizing to all of the people he's hurt, including Martha from the very first episode, who's now sleeping with Mrs. Mayberry, who wanted her killed. That's, good for them, but she had you killed, girl! Meanwhile, Stolas attends this Blitzo party, and okay, there are a lot of people here, and considering all of them are people Blitz is apologizing to, he arrives in short order and says the same thing before hunting down Stolas at the end. But it doesn't work. After a soul-shredding song and another argument, this time while half drunk, Stolas decides to go off with this motherfucker. Seriously, this guy says one sentence and I hate him! Verosika is the last person Blitz says sorry to, and we get the reveal that she really loved him, and he left her the next morning. Ouch. But they have their reconciliation, and Blitz goes home. Whereupon we enter episode 10, and he starts blowing most of the company budget on things to burn and ice cream to gorge on. Moxie is panicking about their budget, and Luna is Luna, so it's up to Millie to pull the company back from the brink. So, when a job comes up about a woman who was mysteriously murdered in a haunted hotel, Millie manages to drag Blitz to the business to try to get him out of his funk. It turns out to be the work of this unnamed infestor demon, a resident of, I want to say envy, given the fishy look. He puts Blitz through the ringer, making him relive several horrible core memories, including the death of his mother, and seeing a version of Millie for each episode in season 1 where she could have died, which is just, ugh. I mean, God, that one is partially digested. Makes my skin crawl looking at it. But the real Millie comes through for him, revealing to us how they met and how Blitz pulled her up from drinking away the days in dive bars to help him run his business, where she then met Moxie, and they became the best couple literally anywhere. I will fight you! We have an epic fight scene with the infestor demon, where he possesses Blitz and makes him relive some of his past memories, where we see Verosika at Ozzy's, who was actually sad instead of angry like we thought, and we see this guy who kept Blitz from seeing Fizzaroli all those years ago. And wouldn't you know it, it's f***ing Cash Buckzo! That puts him well above Paimon in the worst dads ever category. An absent father would have done less damage at this point. But eventually, Millie gets through to Blitz and beats the Infestor Demon, who might have died. Hard to tell, but they leave with their heads held high and spirits even higher. And that's when Stella comes back. Apparently, she had never told Androlphus about Blitz getting the grimoire, which is apparently turbo illegal, since Androlphus takes the opportunity with this new knowledge to call the cops on Blitz? How does hell have police? Regardless, IMP is arrested for the crime of stealing a book, giving me enough anxiety to go rooting around my room to make sure I have nothing overdue at the library, and brought to trial, where we meet the judge, Satan himself, Lord of Wrath, voiced by the legendary, almighty Patrick Page, which is somehow perfect casting that I didn't even know I wanted. But after a court so damn kangaroo that it sounds like it's happening in Australia, Satan makes this decree. Blitz is to be put to death, but just before the axe can come down, in swoops Stolas, who diverts the blame from Blitz by saying he gave the grimoire to Blitz for the sake of some master plan that he's making up on the spot, mid-song. Satan, somehow buying that, decides to strip Stolas of all assets and powers and barring him from seeing Octavia, leaving the Goetia to be carried to Blitz's apartment by the imp himself, and his home and legions of demons now falling under the command of Androlphus. And thus, we reach the finale. We find the IMP gang celebrating Sinsmas, which, would you believe, coincides exactly with Christmas? How perfect! But not as perfect as a woman who talks an awful lot like another bitch we know about, who hires the team to assassinate her husband, who they find loving life with the man he left her for. And for the first time, we see Blitz, the unapologetic mass murderer who doesn't care about a damn thing, hesitate. Seeing Stolas and himself in that family, Blitz just can't do it, and they all return to the office, only to find Stolas gone. Apparently, while they were out, the Goetia had an absolutely legendary crash out and stormed out to go find Octavia, who has her own musical number about her misunderstanding of her father. She thinks he hates her and only puts up with her after finding his depression medication, and is struggling with the entire thing, since Stella makes it no better by outright lying to her. Meanwhile, Stolas returns to his manor, which has been thoroughly iced over by Androlphus, who tries to just mock Stolas, but instead gets the total, utter dog shit beaten out of him. Like, Andy caught those hands like a softball. But then we see what other characters referred to when they said Goetias couldn't be hurt. Not only does Androlphus immediately recover, he immediately overpowers Stolas, who is about to be killed before Blitz and his team arrive to help. Luna reveals she can turn into an actual wolf, which feels like something that should have come up sooner, as she literally tears out Androlphus' throat, which doesn't even stop him long enough to cough on his own blood before he's back in action, and turns into a goddamn ice dragon and eats Stolas! Blitz does not take kindly to this, and cutting Stolas free from the throat of the beast, they finally have their reconciliation, and Octavia's arrival to the battle spells a moral defeat for Androlphus. How can he possibly say he only barely won a fight against a bunch of imps? So, angrily, he retreats, citing that they aren't worth the fight. But Octavia is far from forgiving. She berates Stolas for hating her, and a wall of ice both literally and metaphorically builds between father and daughter. And so, we're left with the gang in Blitz's apartment, celebrating Sinsmas as best they can, with Blitz comforting Stolas with an adorable dance. And we see the two finally, truly get together, no strings attached. Wait! Millie's pregnant?! And that just about wraps it up, folks. We hope you enjoyed this video, so please feel free to subscribe. Be sure to check us out on all social medias, and we will see all of you lovely people next time. Bye-bye!